Assalamu alaikum. You're watching Views and News, and I'm Faisal Rahman, live from our Islamabad studios. Today, we'll be talking about three important issues. One is about the economy of Pakistan, especially during this pandemic. And at the same time, when you look at the agriculture side, there is a big threat of a locust, though it has been controlled to a certain extent. But there is another wave which is expected by the end of this month. And this could continue even in 2021 also. So that is going to be something very important for our economy. Whereas when you talk about the current conditions because of the global pandemic, as we all know that this has been almost 4 or 5 months that everybody is wearing a mask, we are washing our hands, offices were closed, schools, universities, our colleges are still even closed at the moment as we speak. But most likely by the mid of September, they plan to open them up, considering the situation improves. Prime Minister also said that the coronavirus graph, it has gone down. People are getting a lot of awareness also. He opened up a program also today with the help of the Chinese, and the 250-bed hospital in Islamabad was also inaugurated. And along with that, Pakistan has been able to manufacture their own ventilators, and we have been doing a lot in various sectors. Primarily, the person who is on daily wage, the person who goes out, works, gets the money, comes back home, and then he can feed his children. That particular group, which is the lower part of your economic system, is affecting, really getting affected. Currently, if you look at the situation in Pakistan, we do not know exactly when things will get back to normal. But we hope and we pray that things do settle down at some stage. But there are a lot of challenges, there are a lot of issues, and currently, since I mentioned you that we'll be talking about the economy in our today's program, the effects of coronavirus on our economy as well as on the agriculture side when we talk about locust, and what sort of a policy are we talking about, what sort of an economy are we talking about, the foreign direct investment, FDI, that is also a very important area. We have learned that a lot of people are coming back from the Middle East, especially from the Gulf states, who are working there and pulling in a lot in the remittances side. But other than that, a lot of pilots have also been discharged from their services abroad also. And so much is going on. So we'll be talking about that. But before that, let's see what the Prime Minister had to say.
The future is very uncertain. We don't know how long the economy will take to recover from the impact of this lockdown. So no one is sure right now where we are headed. The most vulnerable section of our society remains our labor. And that's why this summit is extremely important. We need to share ideas. We need to have some sort of a joint strategy on protecting our labor class. Small and medium industry, which employs the highest number of people, is the most vulnerable. In fact, the most bankruptcies are in the small and medium industry. And that's why we need some sort of a strategy.
Prime Minister was actually addressing the ILO, International Labour Organization's summit, where he in fact emphasized on two very important areas. One, he talked about the labor, the person who is either skillful or otherwise, who is working on daily wages. Number two, the small and medium enterprises, SMEs. And this is true that after the agriculture, most number of people who are associated with industry are in the SME sector. Again, something very important. And we can always give it a jump start, provided we have everything in control. You talk about Gujranwala, you talk about Sialkot, you talk about Faisalabad, you talk about Lahore, you talk about KPK for that matter, and so many other industrial areas. SME is the key, whether it's about Holland or China or Japan. Your SME is the backbone of your economy. Now, this is something very important. Unfortunately, this area has been neglected for quite some time. Now, what Pakistan has done so far, that is also something very important during this particular time period. Let's see again regarding that.
When we imposed the lockdown to stop the spread of the virus, one hand we had to slow the spread of the virus, but then we had this other problem. What do we do with this informal part of our economy where Most of people were self-employed. So therefore, we came up with this idea of a smart lockdown. We decided that we would, on the one hand, stop all places where there were public gatherings, so schools, colleges, marriages, anywhere, sports activities, everything we stopped. But on the other hand, we allowed other activities like construction and agriculture. On top of it, we decided that we needed to transfer cash to this informal part of our labor. In Pakistan's history, never was so much money transferred to so many people in such a short space of time. So that's saved us from some of the worst aspects of the lockdown. For instance, we saw what was happening in India. India did the opposite. They went for a curfew almost. And they had the huge problem of millions of migrant workers who were just left stranded. And on top of it, their poverty, because of this very strict lockdown, their poverty rates have gone up.
Now, the Prime Minister, in fact, emphasized on something very important. He talked about the agriculture sector, and then he talked about the smart lockdown, because a lot of people basically are self-employed in Pakistan. They have their own stores or some sort of a small business. So the smart lockdown not only helped in reducing the coronavirus cases in the country, but also helped the poor and other people so that they can, in fact, have a proper living level. When you talk about the living standards, obviously there are problems, there were problems, there was shortage of, for example, sugar, wheat, and a couple of other commodities as well. But things are very much in control. Pakistan, remember, is a poor country, is from South Asia. When you talk about the international level, imagine 14 trillion, T for trillion dollars worth of businesses, they just evaporated. I'm going to give you so many examples. Airbnb, for example, they took 6 years to come to this level, went down within no time. Your airline industry, your tourism sector, you name it, and they faced the problems. Now, talking about another very important aspect, let's see the Prime Minister, what did he say, in fact?
We need some joint strategy, how we can soften the impact on laborers all over the world. We would love to share ideas with other people. We would like to know what other countries are planning to do, what their experiences are. We will of course keep people other countries updated with what we are facing and what we feel the way forward is. But this conference is a beginning, I feel. After that, this constant exchange of ideas I'm sure will help all of us to help our labor.
So talking about the joint strategy and exchange of ideas, now that is what innovation is all about. You go through a certain problem and then you realize that what could be the possible proper remedies or solutions for that. And Pakistan has been able to do a lot in this particular regard. But quickly, let me introduce you to our guest. We have with us Dr. Waqas Ali Kausar Saab. He is an expert in governance and policy. Thank you very much, Dr. Saab, for taking out your time and being here with us. We also have with us Dr. Rana Jawad Asghar Saab, expert on infectious diseases. Thank you very much, Dr. Saab, again, for being a part of our show. Now, let me start off from you, Dr. Waqas. Now, a couple of very important areas mentioned by the Prime Minister in today's summit when he talked about the overall concept of smart lockdown that helped not only in controlling and reducing the coronavirus cases, but also looking after the economy at the same time. Now, nobody knows when things will get back to normal. As I just mentioned, that $14 trillion evaporated from the global market. Just imagine, look at the shares, look at the current statuses. You talk about tourism, you talk about shopping, you talk about manufacturing, you talk about production. Anything and everything has been at a halt now. We do not know when things will get back to normal, but this is something which is really hitting hard. Dr. Waqas Saab, your take on it. When do you believe things will get back to normal? Because the new normal is the actual normal now. but at least adopting the current strategies, looking after the affairs in the way we are looking at them now, how different life would be? And when do you expect normalcy to come back and prevail?
Thank you very much for having me. As you have mentioned, and the Prime Minister also spoke and has been speaking on this, this overall challenge is unprecedented. I must say, in the last during the last century, it never happened. I guess this has unprecedented in many ways. Like it has impact on social, political, and economic fabric of the not only our society but the entire globe. You have seen, as you have yourself shared, about how the economic system sort of came to the verge of collapse. We have seen that business getting down. We have seen SMEs getting closed down, and the way it has impacted the not only the economy but also the social, political, and other fabric of the society. And this challenge is unprecedented in nature, no doubt. On the other side, we have also seen that, of course, this was an entirely new phenomena for everybody and for almost all of the countries, when we have come across new words, new strategies to counter or to mitigate its impact. I guess the Pakistan's, when we see the Pakistan scenario, overall socio-economic and the fabric of the society, I guess it has also some unique challenges, and because of the very much nature of our society, as Prime Minister repeatedly has mentioned that, and we obviously before even lockdown we were in economic crunch. Our economy was not doing that much progress like the Western democracies or the Western developed economies. We are progressing. We were in a phase of developing and sort of healing our economy. So this unprecedented challenge has not only clamped down, or not only reduced our economic base, but also has impacted adversely not only the formal sector, but the informal sector as well. I mean, just imagine that more than 70-80% of our non-agriculture labor force is employed by SMEs, as mentioned by Prime Minister as well. So, of course, the challenge was unprecedented. Government has tried. There has been many programs that relief and rescue to the people. Of course, there has been a very quick response from the government initially about how to, sort of impose the lockdown. And then there has been a critical and I guess continued thinking about smart lockdown, which according to government, and we have witnessed that this has improved the situation to some extent, and this has been working for Pakistan particularly. We have seen that there has been a lockdown, but economy somehow, our people and social fabric and structure have been pushing and helping each other in society.
Correct.
So that this economic wheel has been, sort of, it is going. Now there's a fundamental question and problem is that, of course, health sector, Dr. Saab is there, he could qualify me as well, and that this is one of the sector that we have received a lot of pressure. I mean, Pakistan is investing less than 2% or maybe 2% of its GDP on the health sector. Of course, ideally it should be more than 10%, but we are trying. Our informal sector is also trying to help government as well. I guess this is one of the important thing that government is trying to do, and also need to see that how we can enhance the social protection of the people, those are outside this fabric of the formal businesses.
Well, I
of the
think government is doing whatever they can. I mean, look at the amount of money that has been given to the NDMA, or otherwise look at the number of people who have been given cash to ESA's program for that
That's
matter.
what
Today
I'm
I was
saying, that
watching TV
this program,
and yeah, please.
yeah, this program of cash distribution, I mean, this has been hugely applauded internationally as well, that people are receiving funds and at least some seed money to start to have at least their economic wheel going, and that's a very, I guess, appreciating. But given that, we need to also understand that our own economic challenges are humongous. I mean, the people are unemployed and will be unemployed, and this is universal or global phenomena, not only in Pakistan, as you mentioned, in Middle East, in other countries as well. That is a strategy where we need to see that how we can manage this inflow of people that will be coming from abroad, and
I
particularly
think that
when
is something very important.
Pakistan.
I'll get back to you, Dr. Saab. We have been also joined in by Abid Qayyum Suleri Saab, senior economist. Abid Saab, Assalamu Alaikum, and thank you very much for talking to PTV World. Now, talking about the economic challenges that are being faced not only by Pakistan, but I think the region as well as the whole globe at the moment. We do not know when this pandemic, epidemic, whatever you may call it, it's going to end. And we have learned that it has got so many different strains, and then on top, few people really get serious, people can't breathe, but few are asymptomatic at the same time. So the confusion prevails because there are no direct possibility that this man is COVID positive. Rather, that once you'll get to know, maybe you were exposed by that time. So this is something, I mean, the enemy is invisible, unfortunately. Abid Saab, do you believe that the next 4 5 months, this is the middle of the 2020, let's assume another 6 months till December, do you still believe that things will be back to some sort of normal, or the new normal is going to be the actual philosophy then? Abid Saab.
Well, I think we should be mentally ready that BC would never, AD would never be like BC, and AD is after disease. BC is before Corona. There is no post-Corona world that one is expecting. Corona is here to stay. The maximum relief that we can have, that we will have a vaccine which can control its spread, just like any other diseases which would prevail, and those would come like flu or common fever, etc. So that is here to stay. And we should also remain prepared that just like after September 11, which changed the whole world, our ways of working, our ways of travel. So security first was the cliche. So with this COVID, 6 months down the road, if we have a vaccine or if we don't have a vaccine, again, the whole world is going to change. So there would be new SOPs. Safety and security first would be new cliche. Health systems, all the governments, if they have, irrespective of the fact whether they are rich, whether they are developing countries, whether they are poor countries, they would have to invest in their public sector health infrastructure to whatever their budgets they allow them. The way we travel, the way we conduct business, the way we greet each other, the way we meet each other. So all of those things, those would be actually governed by certain SOPs, which we will be adopting voluntarily. 6 months down the road, there can be three possible scenarios if one looks at Pakistan. Business as usual, which is today's scenario, around 3,000 cases per day, less than 100 casualties per day. That is business as usual for us. And
Sir, that I agree. But the point is, Abid Saab, number of tests conducted versus the number of COVID positive cases. That ratio is very, very high, by the way, sir. So if we just say, well, only 60 people died today or 3,300 got COVID-19, I am 100% sure that is not the right figure. That is regarding those who are tested. So it's very alarming as well.
I agree with you, but then I share your concern here. Of course, there are quite a big number of people who either they don't get tested themselves. They, now in urban areas, and especially in upper middle income classes, people as soon as they realize they have some sort of symptoms, they isolate themselves. They don't go for testing. But then there are other people as well who simply don't bother to get tested, or they don't have the means to get tested. So the prevalence is quite high. But one thing which is which gives me some sort of optimism, that is the number of recoveries. So those who get tested,
all right,
if you compare the people who get infected vis-a-vis the people who has recovered, more than 50% people, they have already got recovered.
Yeah, that ratio, I mean, death ratio is well under 5%. But let me also involve Dr. Rana Jawad Asghar Saab, who is he's an expert on these infectious diseases. Now, Dr. Saab, a couple of important areas. Now, Eid is approaching. The government has decided that only 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, these would be the off days from work. And they have also thrown light on a very important issue, that this could now go from the cities to the villages, because a lot of people go for the Eid holidays into their villages. Now, sir, today we got to learn that small cities are getting affected. Number of cases, they are multiplying. You talk about the last Eid, and we all know that right after that, how many people got infected. The average day was around 5,000, 4,000, 5,000 people who were getting infected because of this. Number of deaths also raised. Now, sir, approaching Eid, looking at the current scenario, God knows when it is going to finish. Give your expert opinion on this, sir.
Thank you very much for inviting me to this program. You and I were talking about this disease the day it started. I think in February we did the first program together.
Yes, Dr. Saab.
And my own calculations or estimation was that the first, actually, I would say the plateau came in May, in mid-May. Unfortunately, in that time period, we lost that opportunity to bring the outbreak to a lower level because at that time, the case positivity rate, as you have mentioned, is which now reached, some weeks ago reached to 25%, was less than 10%. Yeah, so that was, I think, the best opportunity which was lost because before Eid there was a lot of shopping allowed, and then pretty much for 9 days of holidays there was a huge mixing and mingling of people all across. And if you see, then right after Eid, we saw the biggest spike of cases. You give 7 to 14 days of incubation period to the mixing which happened around Eid or before Eid, and then you got the mess in which we were. So my worry is, and I share your concern also, the number which we are saying are just a fraction. It's not a reliable, it's not reflecting a true picture to us. Yes, there is number of cases have decreased, but that's our numbers are not giving us the clear idea of that decrease, and that's my problem is, and also the upcoming Eid. And if people still, mixed with each other, had the barbecue parties in each other houses, then my worry is that we will get another peak. So the issue in the coronavirus, this fight in 2020, is not that your cases have come down now or tomorrow or in a week. It's how to keep them at a low level until we have vaccines or effective medicines. We have
But
an
vaccines,
example
sir,
of US.
you're looking at about maybe 10 billion vaccination, those injections or whatever that is going to be. That will take time. First, the Western world. I've heard that the American President Donald Trump, in fact, he has said that we're going to purchase the first lot of it. So it is going to take time when it comes to Pakistan. Dr. Saab, please tell me a couple of other questions which I have for you. One is that now there was this issue regarding the Western countries and the WHO, and now finally WHO has realized that, well, it is possible that it can be in the air also. So if you're not wearing a mask, I mean, certain SOPs are in place, but if you're not wearing a mask in an open environment and somebody has passed from that particular area who was COVID positive, there is a possibility that the virus could be in the air, number one. Secondly, we've also learned that this immunity system, I mean, not the immunity, but this, once you recover, you get normal, you get fine. There is a probability that still you can get COVID because there are different strains of that. And on top of that, another important point is that that immunity or that antibodies, they would be there for about 3-4 months. They're not going to be the permanent solution. Is it true, sir?
So let's come to the airborne issue of the transmission. And WHO has recently agreed
Yes.
that there is emerging evidence about its possibility that this can be spread through airborne. And these are actually, in reality, is the what we all call the difference in interpretation of definitions. That what is the borderline droplet, what is airborne, what is the small. But now it's becoming clearer that these viruses, when spread, exhales from the human body, sometimes stay much longer in the environment, and they can infect two others. Our problem is that this virus is totally new. So we don't know a lot on a long term how its consequences will be for sure at this moment. So similarly on the antibody test, we have examples of different viruses. Some viruses provides just immunity for 1 or 2 weeks, a couple of weeks or a couple of months. But some viruses give you lifelong immunity, and we have example of hepatitis A virus. It will give you a lifelong immunity if you get this. But in the dengue, it has 4 different strains. Once if you are infected with one, it only gives immunity against one
For
strain
that
and
particular
not the
one, yeah.
other 3. But I would say we need to stay with the current knowledge and understand this is evolving knowledge. we have to take precaution, the earlier precautions which were against droplet, that don't touch your face with your hand and all those kind of things, wash your hands frequently, they are still valid today.
So that is going
The
to be
only
the
thing
new
is-
normal now, Dr. Saab. Dr. Saab, let me also involve Dr. Vikas into the debate now. Vikas, now you heard what Dr. Asghar just said. He said that, well, there is a possibility that this is going to be there. It has this sort of a problem that it can stay inside you for about 2 weeks, yet there could be no symptoms, which we call the asymptomatic. So this is not going to go away that easily. We can't say that we are 100% free. Now, what do you think what the government needs to do? I mean, as far as the policy making is concerned, regarding schools, colleges, universities, restaurants, businesses, you name it. What exactly needs to be done? How a country like Pakistan should move forward, considering that we have got limited resources?
Yeah, I mean, that's a fundamental, challenging question to not only Pakistani government, but the entire governments of the world, I guess. One important thing that I want to mention here is, I guess, as Qayyum Saab also said, that we need to understand that there is entirely a new world, as you said also. And this new, we have to adapt and adapt ourselves to this changing environment, post-corona, whatever our new normal, when we name that. We have to be very much sort of sensitized to this reality that maybe businesses, education, economy, social sector, even other sectors as well. We have to keep that thing in mind and devise and design our policies according to that. The fundamental, I guess, the role comes here from a society as well, and the government particularly need to understand that though a lot has been, wasted in that context, that this pandemic has struck us badly, our economy has suffered. But now, what is the next plan? If you want to revive economy, let's suppose Prime Minister announced last time about the tourism, opening up the tourism in northern areas and other that. The fundamental question is that what is the level of government preparedness to understand the overall impact, and how much are we sensitized to the reality that if we have to simultaneously not only mitigate this crisis, but also the wheel of economy going and social and other fabric of the society going. That's a fundamental question that I guess that need a strong political and social consensus within the country. Government, I guess, from the start, from the beginning, has to, from this, I guess, onward, I guess, they have to start a process of consultation and maybe more broaden the sphere of dialogue within the country to come up with certain measures that how a society collectively can respond to this crisis and can help economic and social and other wheels going in the society. What is the crisis right now in the Pakistan? I mean, see, it's an economic problem, all right, but society has certain governance and political structures. If these structures are not aligning itself, not making a lot of coherence and coordination with center, particularly, this entire strategy and framework won't work. I mean, this entirely will generate, of course, there is, I personally believe that there is an opportunity in crisis as well. I mean, this will generate new businesses. Of course, this will generate new ideas as well. I guess that is something foresight, and that is a thinking that we need to have in mind, that we have a youth bulge, of course, it's more than 60%. The technology role has been increased. You were talking about FDI. I mean, we need to think that in future, if we want to go this economic field going and other things going, we need to see that how creative we can be to expand our technological base, how creative we can be to make our technological ventures more and broaden the economic base.
Because
right
Dr.
now
Vikas, it's all about the technology, it's all about the innovation, it's all about having some innovative concepts. This is what the world is all about. Now, Abid Qayyum Sureri Saab, we have learnt that, I mean, this was stated by the minister also, and they said that around 250,000 people working in the Gulf states would be coming back to Pakistan because of the dropping oil prices or the overall economy of those countries. I mean, that's also shrinking. So a lot of people have been laid off from UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, you name it. And then on top, what we have realized that the remittances, they will definitely decrease. On top, now recently the high-end Pakistanis who are working in the airlines as pilots for that matter, earning about $25,000 to $30,000 a month. That's the average salary of a 777 pilot or a 380 captain for that matter. Now, those have been discharged from their services as well, and a lot of other people will also be sent home regarding that. Now, sir, are we in a position to absorb that shock in Pakistan, where the current situation because of corona or otherwise, it's really bad. Look at the current budget. There are plenty of big issues at hand, sir. Abid Saab.
I tend to agree with you. There are a lot of uncertainties around economic situation, and unfortunately, if the numbers which are being stated now, 250,000, if they come back from the Middle East, perhaps it would be extremely difficult for public sector to accommodate them. Those of them, if they have their own saving or if they could start their own business, etc., perhaps they would get some sort of productive engagements and productive employments. But state right now would not be in a position to offer any new jobs to those who unfortunately would have to return from Gulf countries to Pakistan, and that would be an added economic as well as a social pressure on our society. Of course, it would also lead to a lot of frustrations and depressions among families who have been receiving some sort of sound remittances. So perhaps the way forward is to look into the productive sectors which can remain productive within this COVID. I'm talking of, for example, the pharma sector. Pakistan's pharma sector does have some potential. Dexamethasone, if it is really used for treating critical patients. So in Pakistan, many generic firms, they are producing it. Then PPEs, the gloves and masks and outfits. So these are the sort of things where perhaps we need to focus. The second important sector is agriculture and food security. Pakistan is quite lucky in a sense. We produce 90% of our food requirement within Pakistan. Our reliance on imported food is quite less, and that sector can be enhanced if government focuses on it. And some of the people, especially those who are returning from Gulf countries belonging to rural areas, perhaps those can be absorbed in agriculture if there are some incentives to promote agriculture, and if our agricultural system can be connected with regional food chains, the value chains, so that can be an opportunity. And third is all about IT and technology. Our youngsters, both in urban as well as in rural areas, who have been using this technology, the computer savvy generation, our software programmers, I think, and those who are starting up new startups. So there is a lot of potential in these things, and government should focus it in this digitalized Pakistan. While this pandemic is posing so many challenges, it's offering opportunities as well. Online education, tele health medicine, all this online financial services, and especially online marketing apps. So there is a lot of potential and a lot of opportunity here. And
I think a lot of opportunities are there. Online businesses, applications. Today I was
Yes.
watching one of the very interesting report made for the SAS program, and the chairperson was in fact, Dr. Saiba was in fact telling about it, and I was so surprised that, listen, this is the time when IT, technology, innovation, that's the key. And you can sit here and you can do businesses all over the world. That is what the new or smart trend would be, I think, in the coming days. Now, Dr. Saab, coming back to you, a lot of businesses, a lot of industries, either they are shut down or at the same time, when we talk about the earnings of the family, a lot of stuff is shrinking at the same time. Plus, as you earlier mentioned about the global pandemic, I mean, it is a problem. It will remain a problem. We do not have a certain timeline that after, let's say, 31st of December, things would be just fine. Maybe 2021 would be a very different year. God knows, COVID-20 might be the next challenge, maybe the next year. Everything is possible now. But Dr. Saab, this social or the lifestyle which we have, stay home, stay safe, uh, kids can't go out, they are sticking inside and they're watching TVs or playing video games or whatever. So the cases with the elderly, people are having a lot of issues, sir, psychological issues, Dr. Saab, and that is something very normal. Look at the divorce rates, they have gone up as well.
Yes, and in reality, let's start with the optimistic note. We are much better in treating COVID-19 as we were in, let's say, in February or March, and because our doctors and physicians around the world are now have treated a lot of people, learned from their mistakes, come up with the treatment protocols which are much better. And I'm tracking our mortality rate for last couple of months in Pakistan. And in the beginning, the mortality after 2 weeks of diagnosis, because that's when most deaths happen, it's not on the day of diagnosis, it takes nearly 2 weeks, was around 4. It has decreased, and I'm talking about, and this is based on the available data, so it has limitation, but that trend has gone down to now less than 2.8%, which is, and that's I'm talking about death rate after 2 weeks of diagnosis. So that shows that our physicians, our doctors, and our hospitals have a better handle on how to treat those patients. So as the time will passes, and as the Sulleri Saab has mentioned that now we know that dexamethasone helps us, and Pakistani physicians were using it even before this discovery, and maybe that's why our death rates were better than as compared to other countries. That more and more medicines we will know, we will beginning to understand their effectiveness in COVID-19, and maybe even without vaccination, with just experience in treating cases of COVID-19, we have a better outcomes. And now coming about the kids and the psychological stress, yeah, that is very correct. Kids are staying home. They are on electronic tablets, the phones, and even their education from some schools, it's being delivered through online systems. So the physical part and the social part is completely missing from the children life. And I think we need to start thinking about how to allow children to go out and play, not with so many other kids, but in a restrictive manner, but still in outside. You mentioned about having the chances of coronavirus from someone just passing by. Yes,
Exactly.
there is a chance, but it's a lesser chance. So anything you do outside, especially if there is a sun outside, it minimizes the risk. Risk always stays, but it minimizes the risk. The inside, if you go to an office which is not properly ventilated, has a much higher risk of transmitting coronavirus through airborne systems that we know of. So even if we are working in offices, we need to make sure that our doors or windows, we try to keep them open, turn on the exhaust fans, have a fresh air inside the room. The more the ventilated the place is, the less chances of anyone getting infected there. Because the virus, even if there is someone infected there who passes on this virus in the atmosphere, with the currents of air, it will dissipate the virus intensity at that place, and it may take it away outside. So,
All right,
so
Dr.
we
Saab,
need
one
to
more
think in a
area. To
different-
also tell us about the COVID load. Normally, people who got it from the hospitals, I'm talking about the doctors who were working to save the patients, or the paramedical staff, or the nurses for that matter. There were a lot, more than, look at the number of doctors died in Italy. Look at the number in Pakistan even. It has exceeded 50, by the way. Now, those people really got infected because of the COVID load. Now, that is something which scares us, scares everyone actually. Dr. Saab?
So true. And especially those doctors and those nurses or those paramedical staff who are working in what we call, say, the high risk interventions, like a pulmonologist who has to put a tube in the patient, and there is a chance of, patient exhaling, coughing, and that's the where there is the most risk is. But what the point I'm making is better understanding now the way the coronavirus is spreading, and we are all learning at a global level. Maybe the ventilation systems of that areas will be improved. We may have the ultraviolet lamps to make sure minimize the virus load in those areas. So I'm very hopeful that as soon as we move forward, we will have a better handle on the coronavirus situation. And so the virus load is there, and definitely, and that's why some people advise you that consider it what is the risk you need to take. If you have to go to, let's say, a bank, which has the closed door, it does not have a good ventilation. So try to plan your trip to that place in a way by calling ahead or something that you spend minimum time in that office. Just like
I
if
mean,
you
that
want to
is
do a grocery
something
shopping.
so difficult to digest, Dr. Saab. Very, very difficult. But anyway, last 6 minutes which we have, 2 minutes for each gentleman. Now coming back to you, Dr. Vikas, talking about the foreign direct investment, FDI. China, China, and China. That's what we end up hearing either through CPEC. I mean, there was another investment the other day. The Prime Minister was there to open up that particular project. Now, do you see something positive happening during the pandemic time period, or you think we should wait and see?
I mean, see, when it
Perhaps
comes
it would be
uh,
China.
we never have witnessed a sort of extended period of growth, sustained period of growth. I mean, in past we have seen it has been past in Pakistan. Largely, I mean, we have seen two phenomena in past as well. There has been a rapid growth, but that was never led by foreign direct investment, but that government and private sector spending. Just quickly, I would like to say two, three things. I mean, China, of course, through CPAC, we have been receiving a lot of FDIs, but the fundamental problem with this is that we have to improve few things. I mean, government has been improving, and there has been a positive gradual change. I mean, we have to see how the overall governance indicators, those are very much there should be, I mean, improved and have provide conducive environment for the investors and the people to come in, and overall the business environment and the political stability itself and sustainability of policies. Actually, these are the factors basically when government try to the people try to invest or bring in the investment, they see the profile of the country we need to improve. We have seen in past that our investment have been directed towards I mean, like countries like Indonesia and Vietnam, and we have seen our people traveling from taking our businesses out from here to Bangladesh and other things as well. I guess this time there is a dire need to understand two things. One, that I mean, it should not be the effort of the government should be to have a sort of a very diverse and sort of a transfer of technology based sort of FDI that should broaden our economic base. The problem is that we have been what we have been seeking FDI that have been in sector, I mean, primarily in oil, gas, telecommunication, that have been actually, on low value added thing. So one, that the high or sort of a transfer of technology sort of thing, that arrangement can help us broaden our economy and sustain our economy in long term. And second is, I guess, the government has been their prime minister has been saying that there's been a lot of political sort of Pakistan's credibility have improved in the region and internationally as well, particularly in the context of Afghanistan peace process as well. So I guess this economic or diplomatic muscle should also help bring FDIs in Pakistan, try to convince international world where security has substantially been improved. If we see the indicators that have been very positively improved, so I guess I'm very hopeful in coming days. Of course, in Corona things have totally changed. The scenario of business development investment is totally changed. But of course, I personally believe keeping this political continuity in Pakistan and sustenance of policies, economic policies, particularly if Pakistan manages to sustain and continue, we'll definitely see FDIs in future.
All right. Abid Qayyum Suleri Saab, your take on the same point, sir. Do you see the economy getting stabilized at some stage, sir, within the next 6 months? I would say the first two quarters of this fiscal year?
Well, you see, frankly speaking, this year 2020, 2021 is the fiscal year. It is not the year of earning revenue, it's the year of spending. We have to contain the disease, we have to spend. We have to go for lockdown, we have to provide people some sort of social protection. If we want to open our businesses, government have to provide some sort of stimulus packages to the business people so that they can open their businesses. On top of it, we are facing locusts. So global recession, which is everywhere, the whole of the world, I think it would also be affecting Pakistan. What I can foresee now that Pakistan's economy that has been actually relying on borrowing for last many decades. This time we need to borrow, but we need to borrow and invest it in our human capital, human development. We can't afford to borrow and then put it on energy circular debt or borrow and put it on inefficient public sector enterprises that are loss making. So if we can plug those loopholes, borrow money and then invest in human capital, invest in health, invest in social infrastructure, invest in social sector. So that is that investment which would pay off when the times they become slightly certain or they become slightly normal.
All right.
But if we are talking, yeah.
Thank you very much, Abid Karim Sulehi Saab, Dr. Waqas and Dr. Asghar. Thank you very much for your participation. And that's all we have for this week. I'll see you inshallah on Monday. Till then, you take good care of yourself. Khuda Hafiz.